There's a moment, late at night, when everything goes quiet. No notifications, no messages, no expectations. And instead of feeling lonely, you feel something else. Peace. But then a question creeps in. Why am I like this? Why do I feel better alone when everyone else seems to need people? And maybe a part of you wonders, is something wrong with me? But what if I told you, people who like being alone aren't broken. They just experience the world differently. And once you understand how, you might never see yourself the same way again. Imagine this. You're at a gathering. People laughing, talking, moving around effortlessly. You try to join in, but something feels off. The conversations feel shallow. The noise feels overwhelming. You smile, but it doesn't reach your eyes. And after a while, you quietly slip away. Not because you hate people, but because you feel more like yourself when you're alone. Later, in your room, you sit in silence, and suddenly, you can breathe again. Your thoughts slow down, your chest feels lighter, and for the first time that day, you feel okay. If that sounds familiar, this isn't random. It's psychological. People who enjoy being alone often have a deeper internal world. They don't just experience life on the surface. They process everything more intensely. Every conversation, every emotion, every small detail. It all stays with them longer than it does for others. And that's exactly why being around too many people can feel exhausting. Not because they're weak, but because their mind is always on, always observing, always thinking, always feeling. Pause for a second. Think about the last time you were around a lot of people. Did you feel energized or drained? That answer says more about you than you think. Here's something interesting. People who like being alone often have a strong sense of self. They don't rely on constant validation. They don't need noise to feel alive. In fact, too much noise can make them feel disconnected. Because when everything around them gets loud, they lose connection with what's happening inside. And that inner world, that's where they feel most at home. That's where they understand themselves. That's where they find clarity. But there's a hidden side to this, something most people don't talk about. When you spend a lot of time alone, you start noticing things others don't. Patterns in people, unspoken emotions, subtle changes in behavior. You begin to see beyond words. And while that sounds like a gift, it can also make relationships harder. Because once you see too much, you can't unsee it. You start craving depth, real conversations, genuine connection, and surface-level interactions start to feel empty. Pause again. Have you ever felt surrounded by people, but still completely alone? That's not loneliness. That's disconnection. And people who enjoy being alone would rather be by themselves than feel that. Here's another trait. They recharge in solitude, not just physically, but emotionally. Being alone isn't an escape, it's a reset, a way to come back to themselves after the world pulls them in too many directions. But this is where it gets misunderstood. From the outside, it can look like avoidance, like they're hiding, like they're antisocial. But the truth is, they're not running away from people, they're protecting their energy. There's a difference. A big one, because some people isolate out of fear, but others choose solitude because it gives them strength. And if you're someone who feels stronger after being alone, that says something powerful about you. Now here's the twist most people don't expect. People who like being alone often feel things more deeply than everyone else. They care more, they think more, they reflect more. They just don't always show it, because expressing everything they feel would be overwhelming.
So instead, they process it quietly, internally, alone. Which is why they can seem distant, when in reality, they're just full of thoughts, full of emotions, full of things they don't know how to explain. Real life looks like this: canceling plans, not because you don't care, but because you're mentally exhausted. Choosing a quiet evening over a crowded night because it feels safer. Taking longer to reply to messages because you're thinking about what to say deeply. Needing space after social interaction, even if you enjoyed it. And sometimes preferring your own company because it's the only place you feel fully understood. But here's something important. Liking solitude doesn't mean you don't need people. It just means you need the right ones. The ones who don't drain you, the ones who don't force you to perform, the ones who make silence feel comfortable, not awkward. Because for you, connection isn't about quantity, it's about depth. And once you find that kind of connection, you don't feel the need to escape anymore. So if you've ever felt different for enjoying your own space, if you've ever questioned why you don't fit into the constant noise of the world, understand this. You're not broken, you're just wired for depth in a world that often lives on the surface. And maybe being alone isn't something you need to fix. Maybe it's something you need to understand. Because once you do, you stop fighting yourself and start seeing your solitude as a strength.